Well, that was very abrupt. Did everybody hear me transitioning to non-agenda items before my Teams failure? No. Okay.
No, you went silent.
So we're going to move on to whether staff or council have any non-agenda items. City Manager Nyland, anything?
Mr. Mayor, staff do not have any non-agenda items tonight.
All right. Next item on the agenda is a council briefing on the elimination of library fines to align with Washington County Cooperative Library Services. Library Director Bernard.
Hello, everyone. I am going to start presenting my slides. Please bear with me. Can you all see my slides?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor Snyder and City Councilors. I am Halstead Bernard, Director of Library Services for the City of Tigard. It gives me unbelievable pleasure tonight to be with you to discuss the Washington County Cooperative Library Services proposal to eliminate overdue fines for all member library materials. So first and foremost, eliminating overdue fines is an evidence-based way to reduce one significant barrier to library access. According to the Urban Libraries Council, research shows that communities of color are more likely to be impacted by unpaid library fees and are grappling with a higher percentage of suspended library cards. This is a growing concern for many municipal leaders who want better ways to engage and support community residents. Overdue library fees often represent a very small fraction of a library's operating budget, yet disproportionately affect communities that have income insecurity or individuals with low incomes. Late fees add up and become insurmountable for some families when forced to choose between paying a fee or buying food. For many, this is a reminder of past injustices within public institutions. Ooh, did I stop my slides? Here we go. So counter to the popular narrative, it restarted again, sorry. Counter to the popular narrative that overdue fines teach civic responsibility, eliminating fines actually upholds the timely return of library materials. The Chicago Public Library saw a 240% increase in returns after eliminating fines, and the Salt Lake City Public Library saw a drop in materials that were returned late after eliminating fines from 9% to 4%. Eliminating overdue fines also affirms patron responsibility. In the High Plains Library District in Colorado, 95% of materials were returned within a week of the due date. And from the San Francisco Public Library white paper on eliminating fines, overdue fines do not turn irresponsible patrons into responsible ones. They just distinguish between patrons who can afford to pay and those who cannot. So as you see from the map, we are way far from the first public library system to consider going fine-free in this country. This is a wave of equity that continues to sweep through our nation. And locally, both the Multnomah County Library System and the Fort Vancouver Regional Library District have both gone fine-free. And Peter Bromberg, Executive Director of the Salt Lake City Public Library, says that since going fine-free in 2017, the library has actually seen a rise in the number of new patrons, 3.5%, and a higher number of borrowed books, 10%. And this quote from Peter Bromberg, there were literally 0 negative consequences. I've probed this with staff and tried to extract some data or story that reflects a downside or a problem. There just haven't been any. So what's the local impact to access? This is considerable. Almost 3% of our current registered patrons will again regain access to the library. And we have no idea how many people have simply not registered for a library card because of the punitive nature of overdue fines. Something that should not be overlooked in this access piece is how eliminating overdue fines will not only reinstate access for some patrons, but how it will improve existing patron relationships with our library. Again, from the SFPL white paper, the existence of overdue fines and a fine payment transaction itself is one of the most negative aspects of a patron's relationship with the library. So a local impact in fees, here we see the potential fee impact to the general fund. And I say potential because assessed fees are simply the idea of money until they're collected. And some patrons, I include myself in this number, carry an unpaid fine balance until, with items that we have already returned to the library, some patrons simply never return. A cost we haven't been able to quantify locally because of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is how much we spend in staff time collecting overdue fines. As you may or may not know, overdue fines were suspended in March for all WCCLS libraries because of the closure of library buildings. But in San Diego, officials calculated that it would actually be saving money if its librarians stopped tracking down patrons to recover books. The city had spent nearly $1 million to collect $675,000 in library fees each year. So something that would help offset the cost, the loss in fine revenue that we have budgeted for locally for the current fiscal year is a one-time revenue distribution from the centralized online fine payment system, which would obviously go away if fines go away. The net revenue for the Tigard Public Library is small, but it would amount to $7,363.27. So what are our next steps? On September 30th, the WCCLS Executive Board voted unanimously to bring this recommendation to the Washington County Board of Commissioners. If the Board of Commissioners approves this recommendation on November 3rd, the elimination of fines would go into effect in early 2021. I would love to relay your support for this recommendation to WCCLS. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm ready for any of your questions.
Thank you, Director Bernard. This seems relatively straightforward, well thought through and presented, and I personally don't have any questions, but we'll check with other counselors. I will state that I think because of how well it's thought through and what you've put together, I would absolutely support a whatever, either written support, etc., from the Tigard City Council. But let's see how the rest of the council feels. Councilor Lube.
Yes, thank you. So I wasn't able to make last week's library board meeting, but previously when we've discussed fines, the library board has been incredibly supportive of it and believe it's a move in the right direction. And so I wanted to make sure that that's acknowledged, and I think it's a great idea, and so I hugely in support.
Thank you. Council President Goodhouse.
Yes, I'm in support as well. The only question I had, though, how does it work for items that are never returned? Is there something that if it hits a certain time frame, or is it just written off, or how does that work with items never returned? I guess that's the only question I have.
I'm so glad that you asked. I didn't include that in the presentation because I didn't want to get too far in the weeds. But for items that go to what we call long overdue, and that's over 25 days overdue, then we start sending bills for the replacement cost of the item. So that if someone never returned an item, they would still need to pay the replacement cost of the item.
Okay, so if they get that notice then that it's 25 days past due, and they're set a bill for the whole amount, then they can obviously return that, and that's kind of their notice to say return this or pay the full amount.
Exactly, and if they return it with no overdue fines, they would not owe anything, and they would be back in good standing with the library.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Anderson.
No questions, total support.
Youth Councilor Coughlin.
I'm just glad to see that we might get more people using our libraries, so I would totally support this.
Counselor Newton.
I'm in support, and thank you for the very thorough presentation. My questions were answered in the presentation, so thank you.
All right. I think, Director Bernard, do you feel like you have what you need?
I do. Thank you all so very much. This is a huge step for equity in our library, and I'm just so happy to be a part of it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 3 on our agenda to consider resolution adopting a utility bill relief program for renters. Mr. LaFrance.
Mayor, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I only see my video. Is anyone else's videos on, or I just have to see everyone's initials? Maybe it's just my
Yeah,
computer.
I don't know what I'm having a similar. I can see Counselor Newton and myself, and I'm not seeing anyone else either. Mr. Nullup, is there something going on with our team's application right now?
Nothing that we know about, but there's typically always something going on with a Microsoft application. So, Counselor Goodhouse, at this point in time, we cannot see your video, so you might try toggling it on and off and back on again.
Okay, I can see mine. Everyone else is just initials, so I don't see anyone. It's not even your video, so I don't know if I should close out and go back in, or just go on with it.
Well, let's try to continue on and see if we, well, actually, let's do this. Let's take a 20-second break where everybody can turn. How about if everybody turns their cameras off and back on again? See if we can kind of stun the system into working. Well, there's Counselor Lube back. Oh my goodness, it is working.
I still, mine's not, but that's okay. We'll move on.
And Counselor Goodhouse, yours still is the only one that we cannot. So if we have 30 more seconds, if you want to leave the meeting and come back in, that might fix it.
Okay, I'll do that real quick.
Counselor Newton, you have your camera back on?
I do. I can see. Yeah, it's on. So I'll do it again.
No, well,
I can see everybody except John's.
Okay, and I lost Liz in the last. I had. Oh, there we go. Now I got Liz.
You
back.
see me? Okay.
Bizarre. We haven't
Real
had this kind of
bizarre.
issue for months. But we'll let Council President Goodhouse get back. Sorry to the public for this, but it is important for us to be able to see each other as best we can. So I think it's worth trying. And Mr. LaFrance, you're ready to go as soon as we're back and convened?
I am. Well, once we have verification that we have people's cameras working, have a presentation I'll bring up. For what it's worth, on my screen I can see everybody except for Councilor Goodhouse, and I can see the new audience view that is handy in Teams.
It's definitely different.
I'm wondering if that has something to do with it. Mr. Nullup, was that pushed to certain devices? Like, is that the default now for certain folks?
That is a new air quote feature of Microsoft Teams that has been recently released. Unfortunately, it's not something that we have control over who gets it. It's a Microsoft release feature.
Okay.
That's mad work.
I'm wondering if that's contributing to this, but Council President Goodhouse, are you back? I'll take the silence as a no. See if I have a text message. Oh.
Bro, like, maybe I'll ask for that.
Mr. Nullup, he did just text me. Can you send him, maybe remove him from the invite and add him again, or send him the link? Because he's saying that's now disappeared off his computer.
Oh no.
Okay. I will re-add him to the meeting right now. Okay, he's been re-added.
Okay, I'll let him know. I think we're fortunate to have made it this far without a. I mean, we had one meeting where my computer literally crashed in the middle of the meeting, but other than that, we've had pretty technology trouble-free time, I would say, mostly for how much we've done.
Oh, there he is.
There we go. Now it's working.
You're back? Oh, there we go. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I'll recenter us here. We are going to be considering a resolution adopting utility bill relief program for renters. Mr. LaFrance.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Give me a moment, please, while I share my screen and bring up the presentation. All right, can everybody see the presentation all right?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you. So, Mr. Mayor, as you said, we have a resolution before Council. This is the continued expansion and improvement of the Tigard Aid program. This is the program that the city has set up to help those that have been impacted by COVID through help with their utility bill. So tonight, the resolution that's before you this evening accomplishes four main things. Essentially, it repeals the old resolution and keeps the pertinent parts moving forward. So what we're trying to do is, instead of having a patchwork of multiple resolutions, as we improve the program and expand the program, we're essentially doing a repeal and replace. So we're bringing forward the aspects of the prior program into this new resolution. The new piece that we'll be doing, so the second aspect, is to expand the program. The current program helps those that are single-family households, helps businesses, essentially direct customers of the utility system. What this new expansion will do is provide aid that would be equivalent to a utility bill for those that are renters in multifamily residential units or leasers in a business complex. Third item is we're recommending that we continue the Tigard Aid program, which is currently set to sunset on January 1. The slide actually says June 20th. The resolution says June 30th. Apologize for that typo there on the slide. And then also the other thing that's set to expire at the end of the year is our waiver of late fees and water shutoff actions. And we're recommending that we extend those until at least April 1st of next year. So going into a couple of the aspects I mentioned, so this resolution will repeal the most recent resolution, 20-47, and essentially we will maintain the existing program and we'll incorporate that into the new resolution. Also, the existing program currently has that resolution extended the waiver of late fees and shutoffs to January 1. The new resolution will extend that even further. So the newest component of our aid program would be to provide, first on the residential side, assistance of $100 per month to renters in multifamily housing. Who have been impacted through unemployment or underemployment due to COVID. To get to $100 per month, we do have for a multifamily housing data on how many units there are in each apartment complex. And so we were able to look at a couple months worth of actual billings divide that by the number of units, and it came out right around $100 per month per unit. So this is a data-based, consistent amount that we could provide to renters in multifamily housing. On those that are leasing in commercial commercial complexes, we don't have data on the number of units. So what staff is recommending is that we give the equivalent to a business leaser, equivalent to what a resident would receive, which is $100 per month, unless they have documentation that shows how much of their lease is intended to pay for utilities, in which case we would make them equivalent to one of our commercial customers, where they'd be eligible for up to $500 per month for tenants of a commercial complex. So we would be taking and we would be extending the existing program, which is currently set to sunset at the end of this calendar year. We're recommending that we extend the aid program through the end of the fiscal year, so through June 30th. This would give us time to essentially, we're going to be implementing this new expanded program in November, and that would only give us 2 months to provide the aid to those that are intended to receive this aid. We feel that there's enough unexpended budget. To remind council, there's $750,000 that has been set aside to provide this aid. There's enough unexpended budget that we could extend this program likely through June 30th, not exceed the budget, or if we do exceed it, it won't be until towards the end of that program. And this would give us time to provide that aid to people who are renters and leasers that haven't been eligible for that aid up to this point. Extend the late fees and shut-off actions until April 1st. So note that this is a different date than when we would be ending the program, and we did this intentionally. We've done extensive communications on our programs, put bill stuffers, social media, city's website, communicating with nonprofits that are there to help people with this type of aid, and simply there are some people, we've been started making phone calls to people that are falling behind, and there are simply some people that aren't going to pay attention until their water is about to be shut off. And for those individuals, we want to make sure there's still a program in existence that could be there to help them. And so we're recommending that starting April 1, late fees and shut-off actions start taking effect. So the resolution that's before you this evening would do that. And those are the major components of the resolution before you, and we're here to answer any questions. Along with myself is our utility billing manager, Mai Kwa, and she's both Mai and myself are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. LaFrance, just to get a clarification for everybody at the get-go, you stated that this will be funded with a current aid program, and so does that also mean that staff resolved whatever the concerns were about the funding mechanisms, and therefore we're good to use the funding that we already had scheduled for this? Is that accurate?
It is. We have been in contact with our city attorney, bond counsel, because we do have water revenue bonds out. We want to make sure we're not violating anything there. We've been in contact with our auditors. And between all of them, we feel confident that the risk involved in doing this is minimized. There is still a small amount of risk. Essentially, a program like this hasn't existed in the state, or let's put it this way, hasn't been challenged in the state. So there is no case law. Our auditors are comfortable that this doesn't violate any audit concerns.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. And the other clarification I would make is just to re-verify that when you state any customer in the utility service area, and we've now extended it to renters, et cetera, that even if someone gets part of their utility bill from another agency, as long as they get some sort of utility bill from Tiger, they're eligible, correct?
That is correct. And actually, one small administrative note for council: the originally published resolution actually stated water utility customers. The resolution that's before you this evening corrected that to just say any customer that receives a utility bill. So our utility billing customers. So all of the programs that I've been mentioning are available to any customer that receives a utility bill, and renters and leasers that of properties that receive a utility bill.
All right, council questions or comments? Youth Councilor Calderon.
No questions. I'm just glad to see that we were able to extend it to renters as well. So thank you so much.
Councilor Anderson.
No questions.
Council President Goodhouse.
No questions. Thank you for the hard work, and I'm glad that we can cover these other areas.
Councilor Newton.
Yeah, just one question, Mr. LaFrance. The resolution says it's effective immediately upon passage, but I heard in your presentations it's November 1st. That's correct, right? Should there be something in the resolution that reflects that start date? Just so there's no confusion.
So it is effective immediately.
Right.
What I was getting at is we're almost to the end of October.
Sure.
In order to be able, so technically somebody could apply tomorrow for this, but I want to give a sense of we want to extend beyond just 2 months, 2+ months.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if that might be a potential problem. I understand what we're trying to do here, but anyway, I'm supportive. I just had that question. Thanks.
In practical terms, Toby, it's not going to be in place till November, right? I mean, it's not going to be ready to be administered for a week or two.
Correct. I mean, do you have anything you could add to that? You're still muted, unfortunately. There you go.
Now, I think I'm unmuted now, right? Yes.
Yes.
So good evening, Mayor and councilors. Yes, technically it's effective immediately, but it does take some back end work in order to create some, processes that we will have to implement. And so that's the time that we would need in order to start really to accept applications. But the effective date, of course, would be upon passage of the resolution.
Okay, thanks.
Councilor Lube?
Yeah, I can speak to the renters part of it, and I think it's great that we were able to spread it to other members of our community, and really great job to the staff for figuring out a way to make it happen. So thank you.
You want to make a motion?
I can't vote on the motion still because it's repealing the last one.
Sorry. Would someone else like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve resolution 20-50.
I second that, Council President Goodhouse.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, please read the number and title of the resolution.
Resolution number 20-50, a resolution repealing resolution number 20-47, expanding eligibility for Tigard's program to provide a monthly utility payment for multifamily, residential, and business tenants affected by COVID-19, and extending the duration of the program.
All right, roll call vote, please.
Councilor Newton.
Yes.
Councilor Lube.
Abstain.
Councilor Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Snyder.
Yes.
Council President Goodhouse.
Yes.
All right, resolution number 20-50 is adopted by a 4-0-1 vote with 1 abstention, 4 yeses, and 0 noes. Thank you very much. And Mr. LaFrance, thank you to your team and the whole staff that made this happen. The rental part of this was critical. I think I also appreciate us, or you, not us, you recognizing, and the staff team recognizing and digging into why the program was so undersubscribed during a time of such need. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We will
Thank you.
move on to the Town Center Development Agency for the next agenda item. This is an update on substantial amendment to the City Center Tax Increment Financing District Plan. Mr. Fairley.
Good evening, Mayor Snyder and the Tigard City Council. Gonna bring a couple slides up here for you. Bear with me for a moment. Can everybody see that?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Nice to
great.
see.
Thank you. So I'm here tonight to update you on the process for a substantial amendment to the City Center TIF District Plan. This is fulfilling one of Council's goals for 2019-2021. One of the specific tasks to undertake was to evaluate the City Center Urban Renewal Plan, determine if there was enough resources to meet Council goals. And so we have accomplished that. We appeared before you in August to brief you on the City Center Futures Project. And that recommendation was to increase the maximum indebtedness of the district within the same boundaries and extending the time duration. And see here before you is a map of the City Center TIF district. Currently, the maximum indebtedness is $22 million. And without further action, the district would sunset in 2026-27. So we said we'd return to you with more information about the process and how much maximum indebtedness we would prefer to ask for. And so staff identified 6 projects that are either new or expanded projects. One of those would be contribution to a parking structure. The structure would be associated with the potential new City Hall, but it would not be limited to use by City Hall employees and visitors to City Hall. It would be open to downtown customers and maybe most importantly, open to visitors to the downtown when there are major events at the Universal Plaza. So the TIF would fund just a portion of that structure, and TIF would not be used to fund the actual City Hall, should voters approve that. And the next project is we adopted a downtown connectivity plan that had a lot of new streets proposed, and those were not included in the plan because the plan was done subsequent to the original plan. So this plan would include those new streets as eligible projects. Another expanded project, currently affordable housing assistance is not called out by name in the City Center Urban Renewal Plan. It could be included under the rubric of development assistance, but we would like to call that out as a specific project with a specific amount of funding. Additional public space investments. We think this is really important to make the downtown even more attractive. We have a couple of good starts with the Rotary Plaza and the Tiger Street Heritage Trail, and then Universal Plaza coming online in a couple years. But there's some other projects we'd like to do, for example, bringing the Tiger Street Heritage Trail south to Hall Boulevard. We'd also like to expand the amount of money we have available for land acquisition, and that land acquisition would be to encourage redevelopment. Sometimes it's necessary for TIF agency to purchase a couple of smaller parcels to put them together to make them easier to redevelop. And then the last potential project would be improvements around the station area if the light rail project is constructed. So a back of the envelope estimate for these projects, about 20 million. So under Oregon statute, an existing TIF district, the maximum indebtedness can be increased up to 20% of the original maximum indebtedness. So in the case of the city center, that'd be approximately 6.6 million. There's a 20% of the original 22 million, plus there's an inflation factor since 2006. So that's what we could ask for without further review from the from our taxing district partners. If we want to go over that 20% limit, we have to get the concurrence of the taxing districts that are impacted by our TIF district. So we have to get the agreement of at least 75% of the permanent tax rate in the district, the districts that represent that. If we do go for over that 20%, we can greatly expand the number of projects we'd like to do. And staff will be discussing that with representatives of these districts. We had a preliminary meeting with Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue just last week, and we are scheduled to be on their agenda at their board meeting in December. And we're also reaching out to the school district and Washington County to get on their agendas. What the rest of the process looks like, we briefed the Town Center Advisory Commission last week, and we'll be bringing them more information and getting more input from them at next month's meeting. We'll be coming back to you with a more fully fleshed out program and estimates of how much different projects will cost and how the TIF will accumulate. We'll bring that to the board of the TCDA on December 15th. Another required action, we have to go to the Planning Commission, and that's been scheduled for January 4th. And then the council hearings would be in February. And if council chooses to move forward with this, then we would move into ballot title writing, and we'd be looking at a May election. And we have engaged Elaine Howard, who's a very well-known urban renewal consultant in Oregon here. She will be helping us through this process. So that's the end of my presentation. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Farley. Council President Goodhouse, any questions?
No, thank you.
Councilor Newton? You're muted, Councilor Newton.
The setup's different this time, so I'm having trouble finding the mute button, an unmute button. Apologize. Mr. Farley, so you said that in December we'd get a little bit more information on the projects, right? I'm just interested in the different buckets and how precise we have to be if we don't end up spending the money allocated in one of the buckets, how that works. So, but maybe, I hope you can cover that in December. The other thing is, could you speak to me? It sounds like the district expires in 26-27. Can you speak briefly about the election timing, or are you prepared to do that at a later date? Why this May is important in terms of timing? Thanks.
Well, I think because of the timing of some of the projects, for one thing, but the parking structure potential, we wanted to have some more certainty. We just think it's a better practice to know what we're dealing with when we're planning some of these bigger projects. Wanting to know how much budget we have and what time period we have. So we thought going earlier was the way to go.
So you can be ready as opportunities arise. Okay, thank you.
Exactly.
I would think it provides more certain, like you can plan with certainty.
Right.
Councillor Anderson?
No questions. Just looking forward to the numbers in December.
Youth Councillor Calderon?
No questions.
Councillor Lube?
Thank you. It's interesting to see all of the different projects that we have potential on, but I think it would be great. Could you just provide a brief scenario or explanation of kind of what tax increment financing is for anyone listening? Just potentially thinking, oh, my taxes are going to go up. This is crazy. Why are we talking about this now? Just a brief overview would be great.
Before he does that, I'm going to intervene and say this actually doesn't increase people's taxes.
That's what I'm trying to get to.
Go ahead, Mr. Fairley. Now you can do the other part of the talk.
It's true. It does not increase individual property taxpayers' taxes, even though there's a line item that you might notice on your property tax bill. It's just kind of an accounting thing. No one's taxes increase because of this. But basically, to make it real simple and short, what tax increment financing is you define an area, and then as the property taxes increase in that area, those property taxes go and pay specific projects that are in a plan. And Tigard is one of only a couple of jurisdictions in Oregon that requires voter approval of urban renewal plans. And so that kind of substantial amendment or new plans have to be approved by voters. And we've had a good track record with the voters in the past, and hope that we have the voters' confidence.
Thank you, Mr. Fairley.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Thank you for the update. Look forward to the detail, and we will move on to the next item on our agenda. And we are reconvening as the City Council for the remaining items on the agenda. So this is to item number 5 is receive a briefing on the Hall Boulevard jurisdictional transfer process. And we have Senior Transportation Planner Roth and a guest from ODOT.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Dave Roth, and I am Tigard's Senior Transportation Planner, and I have Matt Freetag with us tonight. He's the Area Manager for ODOT. I'm going to click over to my presentation, so hang on one second. Okay, can you see my presentation?
Yes.
All right. Here we go. So I'm here to give you a briefing on the process to complete a jurisdictional transfer of Hall Boulevard, which is an ODOT-controlled roadway in Tigard. The presentation tonight, I'll give you an overview, a relationship to the strategic plan, a little bit of context around the roadway itself, the policy context in which we're operating, the process that we're going through right now. I'm going to pause. Can you still hear me? My screen is frozen. Just want to make sure you guys.
We can still hear you, but we see the error message that Teams isn't responding. I guess we can see you moving your mouse.
Okay, let's keep trying this. I might have to turn it over to Mike to run the presentation, but I'll keep going here. So we'll go through the process that we're in right now with ODOT, a little bit about next steps, and then discussion and Q&A with council. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about the relationship to consideration of Tigard ownership of Hall Boulevard relative to our new strategic plan. So I wanted to highlight priorities 2 and 3. So number 2 here is create a well-connected, attractive, and accessible pedestrian network. And Tigard taking over ownership of Hall Boulevard would allow us to facilitate that goal going forward. Priority 3 is ensure development and growth support the vision. Again, I think this one is really around equity and equitable allocation of the roadway space, and this priority relates directly to some of the goals we have around downtown Tigard, also thinking about Southwest Corridor and the work that's happening downtown, and of course Hall Boulevard runs just on the border of our downtown right now. So a little bit about the physical context of the
Dave,
roadway.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second because I've been notified. I think that Council President Goodhouse is offline for technical difficulties again, and I just want to make sure that we have the rest of the council besides me, because otherwise we're missing. So, Councilor, you're going to have a little roll call here. Councilor Lube, are you still on the line?
Yes.
Councilor Newton?
Yes, I'm here.
Councilor Anderson?
I'm here.
Okay, and I can see you with Councilor Calderon, so I assume you're still on? Okay, he's smiling. So keep going, Dave. Sorry. If we'd lost a bunch of people, I didn't want to have you continue until we were back with the majority of the council.
Absolutely.
Back on, Council President Goodhouse.
Oh, good. Okay, so jumping right back in, the section of roadway we're talking about right now spans 3 miles between Southwest Locust Road, which is right at the unincorporated Washington County border to the north, down to Southwest Durham Road to the south. Basically, the whole picture that you can see on your screen right now. The functional class is an arterial, so that's our largest type of roadway we have. Right now, we're seeing about 17,000 vehicles per day on Hall Boulevard, and just under 3% of that 17,000 number is considered freight traffic, so kind of a small quantity overall. The roadway is anywhere from 2 to 5 lanes, depending on the section, and that's within a 76 to 100 foot right of way. There's 8 signalized intersections, and then I think everyone here is familiar with the inconsistencies in terms of sidewalks, bicycle facilities, and ADA facilities. And likewise, I think everyone's familiar here that the pavement is generally in poor condition. The policy context. So our current transportation system plan identifies several projects, all calling for a future upgrade of the roadway pending a corridor study. There are a number of targeted intersection improvements along the road in our current TSP, and some have been completed. So, for example, Highway 99 and Hall Boulevard has been completed. Also within the policy or planning context is the Southwest Corridor Light Rail project. And as you all know, we've been working on some transit-oriented development plans in downtown around the station area, and that all comes into play with Hall Boulevard because it's right there in the middle of all this planning work. With the Southwest Corridor process, we're also going through a design exercise with ODOT as a partner to apply their blueprint for urban design to get a more urban roadway design concept at the station area. We're also operating within the Metro ODOT framework for highway jurisdictional transfer, which I think several of you might be familiar with that process, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then I also wanted to make note that we recently were awarded a grant through the TGM program to do some future planning work for our downtown area, and a significant component of that project will be looking closely at Hall Boulevard itself. So there's a lot going on, I think is what I'm trying to tell you. So just really quickly on the regional framework for highway jurisdictional transfers, this is a process that's being run by Metro and ODOT. And it's identifying a number of state-owned routes within the metro region that could be considered candidates for jurisdictional transfer. Of note here, there are 2 roadways that are significant for Tigard. That's Pacific Highway and Hall Boulevard. So both of those have been identified as potential candidates for future transfer. And of course, tonight we're talking specifically about Hall Boulevard. The process does not commit agencies for transfers or commit any funding, but it does identify the candidate roadways and a process to follow. So what have we been up to? Well, this is a concept that we brought to our transportation strategy team several months back. And we sought guidance at the staff level to proceed with this consideration with ODOT as a partner. And we were given the green light to go ahead and take some steps forward in trying to understand what jurisdictional transfer would mean for Tigard. So back in the spring of 2020, we commissioned a condition assessment study that looked at all of the different elements of the roadway, and is the goal of that study was to try to understand the condition of the asset or assets of all of the different elements and what it would take to bring those up to what we would call a state of good repair. So in summer of 2020, we handed off that study to local ODOT staff, including Matt, who's here tonight. And they took the study, and that sort of initiated this process and partnership with ODOT, where we've been looking at the study together. We've been identifying some areas where we needed some additional data, and we're collecting that data. Actually, ODOT is collecting all of that data right now that will help contribute to a broader understanding of the condition of all the elements. So I'm talking about pavement condition, stormwater, sidewalks, lighting, illumination, signage, everything that goes into the overall asset. So more recently, we've been in the process of developing and executing on a memorandum of understanding between ODOT and Tigard, and I think we're about ready to get that signed. And basically what that document does is it lays out a work plan for us to follow to get to a point where we would start negotiations on an IGA if we desire to move forward with this. So I think I mentioned these are the types of elements that we're looking at. So pavement condition, curb ramps, sidewalks, stormwater facilities, traffic signals, illumination, bridges, and essentially what we developed was a preliminary planning level cost assumptions for what it would take to bring this up to a good state of good repair. And you'll hear that term a lot. That's kind of the language that we're using and is typically used for a jurisdictional transfer for getting a roadway ready for a local jurisdiction to take on. So the MOU formalizes our shared work plan. It identifies some additional tasks and data needs, and that's what I mentioned that ODOT's have been working on recently. It documents an agreement on safety, immediate enhancement, and long-term enhancements for the roadway. And at the end of this work plan, then we would start negotiations on an IGA for terms of a transfer. The other thing that we've agreed to is to coordinate on active projects identified in the statewide transportation improvement program. So making sure that if there's work that can be done sooner than later, then that work is programmed into ODOT's budget. So next steps, we'll continue executing on the MOU. Again, begin drafting the IGA. And then I think one of the bigger questions that we'll have to work through is how one of these will be funded. So there is no exact process for how these things work, but sometimes they're funded through the state legislature. There's funding identified right now in the T2020 bond package through Metro that would fund several jurisdictional transfers in Portland, or it could come straight out of ODOT's budget. There's a number of different ways that you could get funding to complete the transfer, and that's going to be a process in itself to work through that. So right now we'll continue to study the impacts of asset ownership. So what does it mean for our long-term transportation plans? Fortunately, we're in the middle of updating our transportation system plan, so it's good timing to be contemplating this process. We'll study it more with the Downtown Reimagined TGM grant that we were recently awarded. We have to think through how it would fit into, or different improvements would fit into our CIP and budget planning. And then finally, just a note that if we were to take on this new asset, it would have impacts to our pavement management program and our overall pavement condition index for the city. So some things to consider as we move forward. And with that, I'll open up to discussion and any questions, and I will close my crashing presentation.
Yeah, you made it through with that quite skillfully there, Mr. Roth. That took a lot of persistence. Can you just clarify to begin with? You referenced Durham to Locust, but I think
right.
Parts of Hall and Tigard extend all the way up to probably Shoals Ferry, I think. So are we only talking about Durham to Locust? And what about the area from Locust to Shoals?
I think certainly we need to have that broader conversation about the
Dave, did we lose you? Mid-sentence.
We may have hello, Mayor Snyder. This is Matt Freitag with ODOT.
Hi, Matt.
I'll try to answer right now. At least as we look at it, the jurisdiction or the Tigard city limits only extend up to Locust. I think that Locust up to Shoals Ferry is under the jurisdiction of the county at this point, anyway. So that's why we're primarily looking at Locust South. But maybe tying in with that, we are talking with the county as well about that segment and looking at all of Hall Boulevard that's currently within ODOT's jurisdiction.
Okay. Dave,
thanks. Yeah, thanks for stepping in there, Matt. While my team's crashed, I'm back, and hopefully it's more stable now. I just wanted to add on to that that's a conversation we'll want to have as we move forward. And just to note that the study that we undertook and the data that we're collecting is primarily focused on the section from Locust to Durham. And so I think we'd have to go back and collect some more data if we wanted to expand that conversation going forward.
I just want to make sure everybody's clear as they're developing their questions on what it is exactly that we're talking about. Okay, Councillor Lube, questions or comments?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think, Hall is probably one of the #1 complained about roads just because of the condition. And so the potential of getting it up to a better drivable surface is a really great idea. I know you were talking a lot about the state of good repair, and I assume that's part of kind of the negotiation process. But I was wondering, we have our current pavement management index. Is the condition of the road going to be similar to what our current standard is? I mean, is that kind of the goal? Just looking for what sort of general state of good repair we would be looking for. Obviously, the details would still need to be worked out.
So you want to know what the PCI would be for that? Is that, Dave, is that a question? That you can answer?
Yeah, I think in short, if we took over this roadway today, it would really impact our PCI negatively. And so I think the goal here is to try to understand what it would take to get it up to a state of good repair and how that compares to our current PCI. So ideally for the city of Tigard, we would want minimal impact to our PCI by taking on this asset.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that that's kind of the goal, is that we're getting a road that's in good condition, that's similar to the roads, you know, that we've been taking care of, and so the burden of fixing this road isn't falling, you know, to the taxpayers in that way.
So Dave, from what you said in response to Councillor Loob's question, we're state of good repair, we would consider a PCI on haul between Durham and Locust of around 80.
Yeah, I can't give you an exact number, but I think the goal would be to have the pavement condition match what our PCI is across the city right now. That would be the goal.
Isn't that about 80?
Yeah, it's quite high, and that's high compared to a lot of other cities. I think we take pride in that in Tigard, and so that's a goal that we'll work towards.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Newton.
Yes. Thanks for asking that last question, Councillor Loob. I had the same question. The only other question I have is with regard to the funding. You talked about there will be different options, and obviously we're not going to get that sorted out as soon as we get out of the gate. But at which point do we describe how we are going to approach identifying funding? Is that in the MOU or the IGA?
I think the specifics would be laid out in the IGA. I think the MOU just broadly talks about a partnership to find funding, but the specifics would be found later on. And I don't know if, Matt, you have anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you're correct. The MOU is just lay a framework for having the conversation to determine next steps, but obviously nothing's finalized. And as we were getting closer to getting, well, let me be honest, getting Hall Boulevard in a better state of good repair so that the city would be prepared to take it over, then that would be where an IGA would come in and identifying specific work elements and specific funding sources.
Okay, so that would be the opportunity for the city then to have some sort of way to weigh in on that and how the funding's approached. I just remember in the early 90s, we had a sinkhole on Hall that almost swallowed a Volkswagen. So it was not good. Anyway, thanks for the report.
Councillor Anderson.
Well, I guess this is a question for Mr. Freitag. So what's ODOT's attitude towards this? It sounds like they're pretty willing to give this facility up at this point.
Well, to tell you the truth, yeah, we would be, and we recognize that Hall Boulevard doesn't really function like a state highway anymore. It functions much more like a local street, and local streets have much different priorities and needs than our state highways. So that's why we're certainly interested in talking with the city and working with Metro as they go through this entire process to identify different facilities that might make sense for a transfer, and acknowledging that we would have a fair bit of work to do on Hall Boulevard before it would be in a condition where the city would want to be receiving a transfer of it. So, but we're certainly in favor of talking with the city, and it was a good point. I do want to acknowledge the city's efforts up front to come to us, and even before that, to do the effort to have the study done to see what it would look like to transfer Hall Boulevard. So when Dave and his team came to us this summer, there was a ton of work already done, and it laid out the framework both for what the condition was and then some next steps for our respective agencies to follow. So it was a great jump start on this conversation.
All right, Council President Goodhouse.
Yes, the bit of it's a repeat for the mayor and I, because we're on transportation committee. We talked about this a lot, but the other aspect though is I know the legislation's been talking about orphan highway fund, and so if there's any way to continue with that topic, or seeing if the state legislation can pass a fund, because there's about a couple dozen orphan highways throughout Oregon, and I know that would also help along with funding from Metro and the region as well.
Mr. Roth, any comment on that, or Mr. Freitag?
I think I'll just say that it's a process that will happen in parallel to our work right now with ODOT, and I think I just saw an email today come in with some discussion at the state legislature, and so
I'm already pushing. Yeah, I'm already pushing that to sort of get into the legislative concepts right now. But yes, Mr. Roth, you did see that.
Yeah. So I think we'll see how things play out, but like I said, it'll be a parallel process, and we'll be having to do both at the same time. So it will be a big ask to find the funding to do the work that's needed to bring the roadway up to a state of good repair.
Youth Councilor Calderon, any questions or comments?
No, I'm just looking forward to improvements on Hall. It is quite a bumpy road at times.
All right. Mr. Roth, were you hoping to get any additional information from the council, or have you, I know you were mostly giving us an update, but do you have what you need?
Yeah, I think so. I think the purpose of me and Matt coming tonight was to brief the whole council so that you all know what we're working on and working towards, and I think to get a head nod to proceed. So I think we've received that.
I think so. Any council members want to give a not head nod, like the opposite of a head nod? Okay, so thank you, Dave. You're moving forward. And Matt, thanks for being here tonight. We're going to move on to the next item on our agenda. Item number 6 which is to consider a resolution of necessity related to an easement acquisition for the Fano Creek Trail. Project Manager Morris.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Zach Morris, Senior Project Engineer from Public Works, and the resolution before you is related to easement acquisition for the Fano Creek Trail Connections Project. The project would build 3 new segments of Fano Creek Trail, those being one from Woodard Park to Grant Avenue, Tigard Library to Milton Court, and the end of 85th Avenue down towards the Keokuts Bridge by the Tualatin River, and improve the existing segment behind City Hall from Ash Avenue to Hall Boulevard. A large portion of the funding for the project came from federal sources, or the Regional Flexible Fund Allocation, or RFFA, as you may have heard it. And given that funding source, Tigard, like many other local jurisdictions, is not certified to administer those funds. So the funds are being administered by the Oregon Department of Transportation, including what would be these easement acquisition activities. And if we go to construction, they would hold the contract for that as well. A number of years ago, Tigard and Metro entered into an agreement sort of laying out the funding and the roles and responsibilities of each agency. And more recently this summer, we entered into an agreement specific to right-of-way services, which in this case is related to easements for the trail. There are existing easements for the trail as well as city-owned properties for a number of these segments. But we do have other areas where there's gaps or we need additional permanent easements as well as temporary construction easements. So this would establish the project need and lay the groundwork should condemnation ever come into play. There's processes in place to occur before that, which would be property owners would be notified of this process starting. Appraisers would go out and determine value of just compensation based on the area that we would be looking to use. Offers would be made. There'd be a set amount of time for them to review the offers. And if we weren't able to settle, only then would condemnation come into play. So that determination of necessity and condemnation authority lies with the local agency, even though ODOT's subconsultant for real estate services is administering some of those tasks. And so with that, in order to build, use, and maintain these sections of the Fano Creek Trail, staff is recommending that the resolution be passed. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about that.
All right. Councilor Newton, any questions?
No, thank you for that information. Thank you.
Councilor Loop?
No questions for me.
Council President Goodhouse?
No questions, thank you.
Councilor Anderson?
No questions. I just hope that we can negotiate these easements successfully, so we don't have to condemn them, but I guess that's a process.
We hope the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I could move to approve resolution number 20-51.
I'll second that. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, read the number and title of the resolution.
Resolution number 20-51, a resolution declaring the need to acquire property for the Fano Creek Trail Connections project and authorizing eminent domain and immediate possession if necessary.
And a roll call vote, please.
Councillor Newton?
Yes.
Councillor Lube?
Yes.
Councillor Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Snyder?
Yes.
Council President Goodhouse?
Yes.
Okay, resolution number 20-51 is adopted unanimously. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to a briefing on the water system master plan. Utility Manager Goodrich.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilors. Hopefully I've got Candace and Heidi and Shasta somewhere either in the lobby or ready to join us. For the record, I'm John Goodrich, Executive Manager in Public Works and the direct responsible charge for community's water or drinking water system. So tonight's workshop presentation is to provide an overview of the project for the Water Master Plan update. This project is a culmination of 3 years of effort to review water system components, piping systems, conduct hydraulic analysis, and develop a 20-year water capital investment project strategy to strengthen, enhance, and improve the drinking water delivery within the Tigard Water Service area. The city has conducted many water master plans over the last 3 years, but each has been focused primarily on solving our primary water source supply needs. We're excited that this master plan effort is focused on Tigard's water distribution system enhancements as they relate to how our Lake Oswego joint water supply system interfaces with an expanding water system for growing community. The master plan is a requirement under ORS Chapter 333, Division 61, and provides important information necessary for accurate cost of service and rates analysis and SDC methodology inputs. We conduct these planning efforts every 6 years, and the last plan was in 2010 with an update in 2014. Planning is important to set the vision of delivering safe and reliable drinking water to the community. We have 2 workshops scheduled tonight and also on November 17th. The 17th meeting will focus on water capital improvements, cost, and priority. Staff is scheduled for council to consider adopting the plan on December 8th, which will complete the project. The project team is with us tonight. Heidi Springer is senior engineer with Murray Smith and is the project consultant lead. Candace Coleman is the project engineer with Murray Smith and will be conducting the presentation to council. And Shasta Billings-Beck, senior project engineer in Public Works and our staff project lead. Shasta and I will be providing support to Candace and Heidi for any questions you may have. Council may wish to ask questions during the presentation, so we can stop at each slide and ask before moving on. And with that, I will ask if there's any questions from council before we start the presentation. All right, well, I'd like to go ahead and hand this over to Candace to present the project overview. And I'll have to check and see if she's in the lobby.
I think we saw her join a moment ago, but I don't know if she's on and ready yet.
Okay, so perhaps Shasta can go ahead and load the presentation. Oh, there's Heidi.
Hi, I apologize. Am I running late?
No, we're running early.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I hope I haven't kept you all waiting too long. Candace should be joining us shortly.
Okay, So the master plan project, back in the early years, because we were looking for a primary water source, a lot of times we were very focused on that element. And in this particular planning process, we are really more focused on the water distribution system within Tigard's system, since we've already sort of completed our source water primary supply. So Heidi, I can go ahead and hand this over to you if you want to go ahead and load the program for council's viewing.
Hey, John, I'm here.
Oh, there she is.
I was just having trouble. My my speaker was going to another headset, and I couldn't hear anybody talking.
Okay. So council and Mr. Mayor, this is Candace Coleman. And Candace, if you'll go ahead and load the presentation, and we can go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Thank you for the introduction, John.
Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm Candace Coleman. As John said, I was the project engineer, or I am the project engineer on the water master plan. And I will just go ahead and get started.
Can you minimize your Teams window, Candace, so we don't see ourselves superimposed on the screen?
Oh, you don't like that? Okay. Is that better?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So the master plan is a comprehensive planning document that provides the city with a guide to inform long-term water infrastructure decisions. Master plans are required by the state of Oregon for all public water systems. And it asks three primary questions. What do we have, or restated, what are the details of the existing water system? What do we want? We want to identify solutions and costs that may be needed to correct water system deficiencies and achieve system expansion to meet anticipated growth. How will we get there? The results of the water system analysis provide recommendations for system improvements and a 20-year capital improvement plan. The primary goal of a water system is to deliver clean, safe, and reliable water to your tap. So to accomplish this, the master plan must address four main components of your water system. That includes the Clackamas River. This is your main supply source. The Lake Oswego-Tigard Water Partnership, which I will refer to as the LOT. And this is the means by which water is supplied to the city. It includes a raw water intake system, a water treatment plant, thousands of feet of transmission pipeline, and a pump station and storage reservoir. The distribution system is the infrastructure that distributes water to your tap, including 6 pump stations, 14 storage reservoirs, and over 260 miles of pipe. And then finally, you have your aquifer and storage and recovery wells, or ASR wells. These provide a second resilient supply source to help meet peak demands and provide supply diversity in case of emergencies that could disrupt your LOT supply. This is a map of the water service area. It includes most of the city of Tigard, the Tigard Water District, River Terrace, cities of Durham and King City. I think I have a pointer here. Yes. And then River Terrace West and South. And then this area over here is in the city limits, but it is served by Tualatin Valley Water District. And, okay, so to complete the water system analysis, we start by projecting water demand 20 years. We must also establish your water service goals. For example, what is the range of acceptable pressures or fire flows? Finally, we identify system deficiencies and develop solutions. System deficiencies are determined by assessing supply adequacy for future demands, determining if water is treated to acceptable standards, ensuring water delivery meets service goals, and identifying investment needs for a robust ASR system. So just as an overview of all of the supply sources available to the city, of course, the main supply source is the LOT. The Clackamas River intake is here in Gladstone. The water treatment plant is in Lake Oswego. The finished water reservoir is the Woluga Reservoir. And then the Bonita pump station pumps the water into the Tigard system. The city also has 2 ASR wells. A 3rd well has been drilled, and the city is preparing to equip this well. The city has 1 groundwater well that can be used for emergencies. And then finally, the city has emergency interties with Portland, Beaverton, Tualatin Valley Water District, and Lake Grove Water District. So, water demand forecasting really sets the stage for the rest of the master plan. It's necessary to determine if there's enough water supply and if and when new infrastructure is needed. Residential demand forecasts are based on population projections. For this plan, we used the Portland State University Population Research Center projected populations, and these were provided for the Tigard Water Service Area through 2050. And just as a note, this does include River Terrace South and West and King City West. So these populations were combined with historic residential use data and were used to project residential demand. Historical data was also used to project commercial and industrial use. From this, we were able to project an average day demand, which is the total water use for the system for the year divided by 365 days. And then from this, we calculate the max day demand. And this is an important metric as infrastructure must be sized to accommodate maximum water flows. So maximum day demand typically for the Tigard Water District has been twice average day demand. And then you can see from these projections that by 2050, demand is projected to nearly double what it is today. The next step in the master plan is to take a look at existing supply sources and determine if they are adequate now and in the future. The master plan uses a metric called firm capacity, which is the output of all sources with the largest source out of service. Aside from capacity, water rights must also be considered. So a source can be limited in capacity by a water rights permit rather than physical constraints of the supply source. The master plan also considers the risks of supply sources and poses questions such as, how will the supply source respond to seismic events or drought? Will the sources still be reliable in the future? Is water quality a problem? Will water quality be a problem in the future due to groundwater changes or changes in water quality regulations? What safeguards are in place to protect supply sources? We ask these questions to determine if additional sources are needed, and if so, when they'll be needed. And this also helps us determine which supply sources are the most reliable. The next portion of the master plan is an evaluation of the distribution system. The operation and performance of a water system is very reliant on ground elevations and system pressures. So water systems are divided into pressure zones. As this graphic shows, typically storage reservoirs are located at high elevations, and then water flows by gravity and increases in pressure as it continues downward. If the elevation is not low enough, the pressure is too low. If the elevation is too low, then there are high pressures. So for this reason, water systems are separated into pressure zones. A pressure zone spans a limited elevation range, typically 70 to 100 feet, and this ensures that all customers receive water service within an adequate pressure range. The Tigard Water Service Area encompasses the Bull Mountain area, and therefore there are multiple pressure zones within the service area. The main pressure zone is the 410. This is most of the system and is relatively flat, but as we head up the Bull Mountain area, the elevations get much higher. One of the issues that exists in this water system is that these 560 pressure zones, you can see that there are 8 560 pressure zones, and these are all disconnected. This is a typical issue with service areas that are pieced together over time. Combining these pressure zones has the benefit of increased reliability, combined reliance on storage and pumping facilities, and it's much easier to operate when they act as a single zone. Pressure zone consolidation was a focus in the study, and we wanted to determine efficient ways to combine these small isolated areas to improve service reliability. Part of the distribution system analysis is development of a hydraulic model. This is a virtual representation of the water system that allows us to see where a system has issues and what may be causing them. And then we can test out different scenarios to optimize solutions. The master plan analyzes the adequacy of storage capacity. The components of storage capacity that we consider are operational storage, and this is the ability of storage to supply fluctuating water demands throughout the day. We also include fire flow storage, which must be able to supply fire flow over a certain duration of time. And then there's emergency storage, which is storage that can supply up to 2 days of demand during an emergency event, such as a power outage or equipment failure. Master plan also looks at pumping capacity. Typically, a storage reservoir is filled by pumping water from a lower elevation to a higher elevation. So a pump station must have the capacity to supply a pressure zone and or fill a storage reservoir. Similar to a supply source, a pump station should have firm capacity, which is the total capacity of the pump station with the largest pump out of service. Other things that are considered as part of the distribution system analysis are operational efficiency. This compares a facility's functionality against operating costs. An example of operational efficiency is the case where you might have a pump station at a really low elevation, pumping up to a high elevation, and then dropping water down through pressure reducing valves. What would be more operationally efficient would be to just pump to the lower or to the mid elevation range rather than all the way to the top. This would save in pumping costs. So also we look at pressures and fire flow. We look to see if the water system can provide pressures in acceptable range, as well as whatever fire flow recommendations are needed based on customer type. And when we see low pressures or a lack of fire flow, this is typically undersized pipe, or maybe there's not enough pumping capacity. So these are just issues that we look for. And then finally, there's facility condition. We know that infrastructure doesn't last forever, and at some point all assets must be replaced. Oh, and water quality, of course. We must make sure that there's an adequate concentration of chlorine to maintain disinfection in the system. We also look at water age, and We also make sure that all the sampling is being tracked to maintain compliance with state and federal regulations. Okay. So as a summary, the master plan must address the following questions. Is there adequate, reliable supply to serve the city demands now and in the future? Is the water of good quality? Is there additional infrastructure needed to maintain good water quality? How is the condition and performance of the distribution system? How can different supply sources increase the reliability of the water system? And what are the benefits of the ASR wells? I would like to talk about the pipe renewal and replacement program. This topic is of particular importance because it addresses the issue of underground infrastructure that is difficult to analyze because it's underground. So as pipes age, they start to fail. And additionally, there are other factors that can speed up the failure, like soil corrosivity. Pipe failures often manifest themselves in the form of a pipe break. So pipe breaks require emergency repairs, which are costly. They cause unnecessary damage and interruptions in water service, among other things. As more pipes fail, and as larger pipes fail, the results become more catastrophic and costly. If pipe replacement isn't addressed now, the cost is just pushed down the line, so future costs have the potential to be exorbitant. So I just want to show you now a video, and this is a pipe break that occurred in the Tigard water system. If I can figure out how to do this. I might have to exit. No. Can you guys hear this? Oops.
No.
Okay.
We hadn't heard it yet, no.
All right. Well.
Candace, I think we can just go ahead and go through the video and we can kind of talk through it as far as what occurred there.
Okay.
Yeah, so this was a water main break that occurred, I believe, on November 23rd, 2019. This is the Greenfield Drive area. We had an 8-inch water line that failed, and that failure caused, due to the pressure of that pipe and a new road that was rehabilitated in that area, caused the new pavement to lift up because of the water pressure. So if you can think of in terms of like how a hydraulic lift works in a auto works shop to lift large equipment, the water main, the water that was captured under the roadway actually lifted the pavement. I believe it was about 500 feet and caused significant damage. The road was unsafe to reopen after a determination by our consulting engineers and our public works engineering division. And so that road closure impacted the Walnut, Gardy, and Greenfield area for several months. We had to wait until the weather conditions improved because of the timing period. And I believe that ended up at a cost of approximately $300,000 to the utility in order to rehabilitate this street and open it. So these are the types of impacts that we see. This was a very small main break, 8-inch pipe. Fortunately, it was in an area that wasn't a high traffic as compared to a major corridor or arterial within the city. But it is a good indication of the types of consequences that can happen from a water main break. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. So this is not a problem specific to Tigard. Utilities all over the world are dealing with this aging, failing pipe issue. Here on the West Coast, pipes are relatively new, but on the East Coast where pipes are older, these pipeline replacement programs are now standard. The American Water Works Association has released guidance on how to approach the issue, and they do recommend starting with a desktop analysis, which uses existing data such as age and material to prioritize replacement of pipes. And then ultimately there's a goal of replacing essentially all of the pipe in the system within a certain time frame, typically around 100 years or possibly a little bit more. So now seismic resilience, this is the final analysis that we did as part of the master plan. This is now required by the state to be completed as part of the master plan. It involves an analysis of system performance in the event of the much anticipated Cascadia subduction zone earthquake. And the guidelines for this are laid out in the Oregon Resilience Plan. Recognizing that it would not be financially feasible for water systems to have an entirely seismically resilient system, the plan recommends defining a system backbone. The idea of the backbone is that it connects critical water facilities and customers. Then a seismic hazards assessment is performed, and this looks at things like liquefaction, lateral spreading, and landslide to determine which facilities are at risk for these hazards. And then from this analysis, the intent is that the city can develop a 50-year seismic CIP, capital improvement program, meaning that the city should have a plan for how to seismically harden the backbone system in a 50-year period. And just to show you what we developed for the backbone, the first step was to identify supply sources that are most likely to survive the impact of the earthquake. This is the ASR wells. Wells typically do pretty well in earthquakes, so you can expect that they would probably withstand this earthquake and still be able to supply water. And then if that water can be delivered to storage tanks, then you would have water available for people to come fill up water containers. And then the second step would be getting this LOT supply back into the system. This is likely dependent on restoring power to the water treatment plant. And then the final stage is actually creating this, well, yeah, the backbone kind of creates this, I want to say a backbone system. It's a piping that surrounds the system and can basically start delivering water or transfer water between tanks, or making sure that all supply sources are connected, and then also serving critical customers, which is a lot of it is these city buildings here on Hall Boulevard. So that's the idea of the seismic backbone. And so next, John, do you want to talk about what's next? Or I can take questions.
Yeah, so this was a project overview. In November, we do plan on coming back to council with a lot more detail on those on the capital project list, the findings and recommendations as to why those projects are being put into a 20-year strategy plan to enhance service over the next 20 years. And then from that, then we have the December meeting where hopefully council can consider the master plan and adopt it, and we can close this project. With that, we can take any questions.
Do you want to talk about this slide, John, as well?
Yeah, so coming up in the third and fourth quarter of this fiscal year, we have the rate study, cost of service analysis, and system development charge methodology updates. all three of these items, these are projects that we completed back in 2010, 2011, and we have done no further work on these. Along with we were waiting for the master plan to be completed so that the project costs and any other findings that are adopted by council, that information can then be input into these projects as the consultants sharpen their pencil and figure out how that cost of service is allocated among the different classes. And also, just as important is determining the reimbursement and improvement fee portions of the water system master charge methodology. So, thank you.
Okay, council, this is quite the undertaking, and I'm excited to see how it all comes together as the work is completed. Councillor Anderson, any questions or comments?
Just like you, I'm excited to see it all come together. There's a lot of moving parts here, so great job so far.
Youth Councillor, comments or questions?
No questions, but I just want to say thank you so much for the presentation. The amount I've learned about water distribution as my time on council, it's insane. It's so great to learn all this information. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Lube.
No, it's a great detailed presentation, and it's really important for us to have this plan in place and to really ensure that our water system is set for the future. So thank you for the work on this.
Councillor Newton.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the work on this. I think it was a really important overview to share what all goes into the water master plan and the elements we have to consider. The supply, the distribution, all those things. So I'm excited to see what's coming next, and also helping folks in the community understand the importance of maintaining that infrastructure so we've got a reliable supply. So thank you.
Council President Goodhouse.
Yes, thank you. I have a handful of questions or comments, so I can rattle them all off at once, but the one big part I saw that was missing from this, and I have a question about how the WIF, the Willamette Intake Facility, plays into this. We did an investment to invest into the new intake that's being built on the Willamette River, and we have the commission that's part of that overseeing it. So we have a future water supply we can get from there. How the WIF pipeline that's going to be put in next year along Shoals by Washington Square, how that plays into being another water source we can tap into. And also the future connection of using the Willamette water, and also with our charter amendment of having to be able to provide Willamette water to our residents. How that all plays into the, since it's a 20-year plan, how that all applies into and places into this whole master plan.
So I will say that this is something we've definitely looked at. I've also been involved in the talks on Bradley Corner. This is, using Bradley Corner as an intertie between multiple entities. At this point, I think it's very important to consider all future supply sources, and that's what I recommend, is that you keep your options open. But I can't really speak to what your internal rules are. So I don't know, John, if you want to add to that.
Right. So Council President Goodhouse brings up an excellent topic having to do with water supply, interties, and supplemental and emergency water use. Plus, as Candace related in some slides further back, having to do with those projected water demands. So we want to make sure that we have enough source of supply to meet those projected water demands. Water supply systems, we have some experience now, and we know that these systems can take up to 10 years to get through permitting, design, construction, and implementation to where construction is completed and people are actually receiving the benefit of those large capital investments. The Willamette supply is a key component. It always has been for the city of Tigard, going back to 1998. We're hoping to meet the challenge of going to our citizens and asking them to allow us to utilize Willamette supply in the future at some point. We do have a major regional project that's underway from neighboring agencies and cities, and that project looks like it'll be completed sometime in 2026. Tigard has ensured that they're at the table, along with an allocated capacity and ownership in a key component of that system, which is the water intake facility and the commission that Tigard is a member of. And so these are all components of a strategy, an overall strategy that may go beyond the 20-year planning period that Candace, Heidi, and Shasta have been working on. But that doesn't mean that they're not important. I think that in 2026, when water is available from the pipeline connection that we have over at Friendly Lane and Roy Rogers Road, that will certainly be an important component of an intertie with future intergovernmental agreements allowing us access to emergency or supplemental supply should we need it. Candace mentioned the Bradley Corner, which is really a connection at Olson Road and Hall Boulevard. It's where our Portland connection was and still is. That connection is being repurposed by Tualatin Valley Water District sometime in 2026 when the East Metzger line connects the Willamette supply to that portion of the city of Tigard and the Metzger area. And so we want to ensure that as that line gets repurposed, that we continue to have a connection there. That connection then will be with Tualatin Valley Water District, and also we're in negotiation with the city of Beaverton. They are also interested in having some kind of supply connection there to access Tigard, Lake Oswego water, Tualatin Valley Water District water, or the city of Beaverton. So the three of us are working together along with our partner Lake Oswego to see what kind of benefits we might be able to get from a connection there, or an upgrade to our connection. So these are all parts and pieces of the water master planning effort and the challenge and the opportunities that the city will face over the next 10, 20, 30 years. The Lake Oswego Tigard Joint Water Supply System is a new system completed in 2016. It's been serving the city for 4 years, almost going on 5 as we approach the end of this fiscal year. In November, when we come back to council, we'll be showing some of the improvements that would be necessary in order to access or allocate our full 18 MGD capacity from Lake Oswego. And so there's going to be a balance there of what opportunities are there, when do those opportunities arise, and do we have the resources, both in-house and financially, in order to make those opportunities happen or to meet the challenge. So,
great. So in a follow-up then, shouldn't the water master plan then at least reference the WIF, the Willamette Intake Facility, or investment in that, or the future future direction of using that for a water source? If we're looking at a 20-year plan, we've at least made the investment into the WIF. Shouldn't that be part of it? The one slide that's on there that shows our system, I mean, that's a future part of our system, but still our system that we have ownership in that intake facility.
So in the master plan, it is mentioned. There's a discussion on that. I didn't bring it up today because I know that there are other things involved with accessing that supply. So, but it absolutely was considered, and it is mentioned and discussed in the master plan.
And certainly on council's recommendation, we can strengthen that recommendation within the within the water master plan document. But as Candace and Heidi have observed, within the region, there still seems to be, well, we have a city charter that recognizes that there are some things that we need to do in place before we would be able to access that water.
John, I just want to clarify as you're answering those questions that, you know, this is a situation where I think it's critical to have this included in the work, because part of what we need to do to be able to explain to our residents is why this is an important piece of the long-range plan, or if it really isn't, we need to be able to describe that too. From what I know, I don't think that's the case, but I don't think we can be in an environment, or should be in one, where we're, you know, either not discussing or not thoroughly evaluating what our future situation is going to be. And yes, there might need to be a vote because of language that is in our charter from the 1990s, but so be it. I mean, at some point in the near future, in the next few decades, our residents could be faced with a situation where their choice is either Willamette water or not having enough water. And that's a potential reality and something that needs to be understood and therefore planned for. Sorry, Council President Goodhouse, but I just feel pretty strongly about that.
Well, that's exactly the next thing I was going to make, is that we've already made the investment. We've already made the decision as a city and a council to move forward with that. That's part of the plan in the future. And the best way to start the conversation is to have it in documents, have the discussion that we do have that water source and it's a possible use in the future. So I agree with the mayor that we need to put that in there as much as we can, and that way it gets the conversation going, and then we know that that's to also be transparent, to show that that's an investment we've made and something we're moving forward on. So I strongly also agree that we need to have that in there in detail.
Thank you for those comments. That feedback is extremely helpful for us as we move forward in the draft document.
Plus also the last part, there's a big seismic push at the end, and that's another part of the Willamette intake facility, is the seismic resilience on that as well. So that's a good message as well.
Okay.
All right. Any final comments, or Mr. Goodrich, did we accomplish what you were wanting to accomplish tonight?
Yes, this was for council's purview to see the water master plan project, get an overview. We look forward to meeting with you on November 17th. During that time period, the plan is to provide you with a hard copy of the water master plan, which is, I think, 451 pages. It may actually be 452 by the time we explain the Willamette supply. So that you'll have those documents. That's the plan, is to have those documents for you to review, and then we'll have the workshop be able to answer any questions and provide you with an overview of an extensive capital improvement project list, the recommendations and findings, and the priorities of so why this project other than that project as a priority.
Mr. Goodrich, if there's a rational and reasonable alternative to the Willamette supply, that can certainly be included, but I'm going to guess that any of those will cost more. But I don't want to be, you know, narrow-minded about, like, we have to go to the Willamette and that's the only choice. But I think it kind of, in practical terms, it probably is. But I think for being able to explain to our community the bigger picture, we need, you know, alternatives as well, if there are any.
Mr. Mayor, the city of Tigard is in a unique geographical area and a very unique position within the region. We have a strong ASR program, and as you'll see on November 17th, some enhancements of expanding that program. We have strong partnerships locally with intertie connections. We've been doing intertie connections over the last 20 or 30 years. We play well with our partners, and we try to enhance those relationships. And so I think those interties play a strong component. We have the Willamette Supply pipeline just kind of going through our backyard. And we have the Washington County supply line also going through a portion of our yard. And then, of course, we have our Lake Oswego Tiger Joint Water Supply System. That's our primary source. So we are in a unique position, and that's what makes it such a challenge, is because there's so many different opportunities. And of course, from a resource perspective, there's only so much funding that the city has in order to develop these in a strategic manner.
Thank you very much. We look forward to November and December.
All
Thank
right,
you.
with that, thank you for your time.
So I'm going to move us on. I noticed that we did not have a place for public comment, though we received public comment. So I'm going to put that into non-agenda items. We received 2 communications, both from Mr. Michael Bruin. One was a set of 4 different haikus about the Universal Plaza, and they're pretty, it was pretty neat to read, actually, so I'd encourage everybody to take a look at those. The other piece of communication was his perspective about urban renewal, and so both of those public comments were received by the council. I trust the council will look at them or has already looked at them. They were distributed earlier today. Has everybody received them? All right, we'll move on to administrative report. City Manager Nyland, administrative report.
Good evening, interim city manager Nyland. Just want to point that out. I do have an administrative report for you tonight. I wanted to give you an update on the Public Safety Advisory Board. You should be receiving 13 candidate profile packages soon. If you haven't received them already, they're coming your way. Of the 16 who received the most votes, we had 2 candidates who dropped out because of the time commitment involved. And then we had 1 candidate who did not respond to the supplemental questions that we provided last week. So again, your packet will include 13 profiles plus a score sheet, so you can review those and start ranking them. And we've set aside time on next week's agenda, October 27th, for you to deliberate and discuss the candidates and select your 6 members for this board. Wanted to provide a quick update on our anti-racism action plan. So this past 2 days, the leadership team has had a 2-day training conducted by Empress Rules that focused on our diversity, equity, and inclusion transformation. And I cannot express enough praise for the 2 facilitators we brought on who created a container that really provided a safe and honest environment for a really healthy and vulnerable discussion that was educational and enlightening. And we're exploring ways to continue the conversation and create actions so we can get more people involved with this great work that we're doing. And again, much appreciation to our facilitators. One of the things that is mentioned in our anti-racism action plan is recruitments. So recruitments, as we know, are an excellent way to broaden access and share power with community members. And because of our intentional effort around equity, we are experiencing an uptick in applications for our boards and committees. And we're attributing this to taking a more citywide approach for recruiting. Right now we have 6 board and committees that currently have openings, and we have so far received over 15 individuals who've applied for multiple openings, which is great news. And it's as I said, it's an increase in applications, and we are continuing to promote that opportunity, and the deadline to apply is October 29th. Our communications, we're focusing again on really strategic communications and reaching out to a variety of audience members. And wanted to point out some interesting information in Nextdoor. So Nextdoor continues to grow. We have over 23,000 community members who are receiving our notices through Nextdoor. Last month, we posted 25 different times, and based on various issues from Public Safety Advisory Board to the Mayor's Corner to, again, the boards and commissions opportunities. And those posts were viewed almost 60,000 times. So, and we've received thank yous, over 200 thank yous for providing this information to community, which is really nice to hear, and our good work is being appreciated. Other news, this morning we had a successful water bond sale, and Robert W. Baird was the low bidder. And what this means is the utility will see over $1 million in annual savings in our debt service payment. So kudos to all of those involved. It was a huge effort that was not on anyone's work plan. So we want to thank Team Tigard, as well as our bond counsel and our financial advisors, for making this a successful effort. And the last steps, we will be closing that on November 3rd. So that's what I have for you this evening.
Ms. Nyland, I want to add a couple details about the Public Safety Advisory Board so that the council can think about these things.
Mm-hmm.
So one additional detail is that the Chamber of Commerce notified Kent Wyatt, myself, last week, actually after a conversation with the CEO of the Chamber, that they are politely declining their representative opportunity or seat on the Public Safety Advisory Board. Mostly because of just what the group's going to be working on, and its nexus to business. There is some, but they don't feel like it warrants the amount of effort or time that would be needed for them to have a representative participating in that amount of effort and work. They do want to remain connected. I am going to recommend, and what I'd like you all to be thinking about is I'm going to recommend that to keep the sort of size and balance of the group, that we just add a 7th voting community member out of our group. If people have other alternatives, we can probably talk about them next week, or if they might need development or work, maybe you could quickly mention them now. But I think it's important for all of you to be aware of the Chamber's decision around that. And then also, we have been, I would say we have not gotten a ton of interest in the mental health homeless group, and we had originally planned, we being myself, the interim city manager, and Kent Wyatt, our communications staff, we had planned to have multiple members of the both homeless and mental health services arena sort of apply, but at this point, I don't think there's been any additional applications. I've talked with John Trin, the CEO of Lukendorf, and he has expressed an interest and said that he's willing, and if we had not somehow received that formally, I think he indicated his interest months ago. But I'm going to recommend that the council just consider appointing him without a lot of additional fanfare and process, unless interim city manager Nyland, do you have any more information about that?
Just as of yesterday, we had not received any applications, but again, I think the deadline closed at the end of day yesterday, so I will check in tomorrow morning with the comms team to see if there was a flurry of interest.
Is there any reason, if there weren't others, is there any reason why the council can't just direct appoint him? He's someone that we know, we interact with, we know he has direct interactions with the residents that were concerned about being represented. Is there any concern with that, either from you or the city attorney?
I was just going to turn this over to the city attorney because we had talked about the appointment process.
No, I don't know why I'm sideways. No, I have no concerns with that. Council, we didn't pass an ordinance or a resolution, so there's nothing formal to amend. So council can just make note of that at the meeting when they make the appointments.
Okay, so I'm going to just, in the spirit of moving us on, I'll just ask any counselor, to raise your hand. I was going to say, please raise your hand if you if you have either concerns or wanting to make a comment about that plan, both to use the expand to fill the 7th seat with a community member and or the appointment of Mr. Trin. So Council President Goodhouse, you would like to speak.
Sorry for the premature raise hand. I wasn't sure where you're going, so I wanted to come in. And I'm fine with the appointment with Trin. With the chamber not filling the seat, I would like to see some kind of a business representation, someone from the business community or business owner or something. So I don't know how we change that. Maybe we change that seat rather than being the chamber, being a business owner or something like that, similar to what we do on some of the committees where we say there has to be a community member, a business owner or something, but it would be good to have a business voice in there, because that was the intention before.
Yeah, I'll encourage you to look through the applications and see if you can identify someone that's applied that could meet that need. But I don't think we're at a point where we're going, after we just went through that with the chamber for 2.5 months, that we're going to be in a position where we're recruiting a whole new group or process to participate and meet that interest. So I think we're going to have to pick from the group we have, and maybe you can find someone from that group that will meet that need.
Okay.
Go ahead.
West Side Economic Alliance, or is that would that be more the county?
What about the West Side Economic Alliance?
If the chamber was going to be one of the members, can we do a different organization?
It could be, but I think we're going to run into the same situation. Committing the kind of time that we're talking about for something that is, in their view, when you look at what's going to be being worked on, doesn't have a major nexus to the business community, at least as it's currently working through things. It's just not I can't imagine the West Side Economic Alliance assigning a staff member or just from the reaction from the Tigard Chamber, we're talking about a significant devotion of time over a long period of 18 to 24 months. It's not something that's going to be done lightly, and I would think the West Side Economic Alliance would be even less likely to participate. We could certainly ask them if they'd like to, but I would think the Tigard Chamber would be more likely to have assigned somebody than WEA.
Okay.
And in your packet, your profile packet, you'll see the resumes of the candidates, so you can search for business experience or that kind of affiliation.
Other comments, anyone? And some counselors, I can't see your cameras, so if you want to make a comment or you have a concern about this plan, please let us know now.
Yeah, Youth Counselor Calderon, I was just going to ask if this is like an email we're receiving or if it's like a physical packet that we're going to be delivered.
I believe it's an email.
Okay, cool.
And Interim City Manager Nyland, we have not received it yet. I just checked, so
okay.
It's I wonder if it's too large for the system or something.
I will touch base with the comms team.
Okay.
There is a size limit on email, so yeah, probably might not have gone through.
Anybody else? Okay, we have a executive session. Tigard City Council will go into executive session to discuss the employment of a public officer under ORS 192.660 subsection 2A. All discussions are confidential and those present may disclose nothing from the session. Representatives of the news media are allowed to attend executive sessions as provided by ORS 192.660 subsection 4, but must not disclose any information discussed. No executive session may be held for purpose of taking any final action or making any final decision. Executive sessions are closed to the public. The City Council will adjourn at the close of the executive session. Good night, City of Tigard.
See you guys.